xQc is the biggest streamer in the world. While he's the #1 when it comes to hilarious content,
Dude!
when it comes to chess, he's famous for how much he sucks at it. The clip where he gets checkmated by most critical in 6 moves has 16 million views.
It's too soon, Hikaru. We didn't even reach a climax.
He has also an impressive technique to give checkmate with 2 queens. And apparently he loves trading his queen for a juicy pawn.
Free piece. Again. Another free piece. Bop! He can't pick because he's pinned. Another move. Another move.
Another one.
Is there hope for this man? While many of you might think, no, I've analyzed his most recent chess games. The openings he plays are the best for beginners, e4, e5 with both colors. In this video, I will show how he can avoid losing in 11 moves, he did it yesterday, against the fried liver, and then how to actually play his most played opening, the Spanish. Enjoy! The first game starts with e4, e5, knight here attacking the pawn, knight out defending the pawn, bishop out, knight out, and knight g5. This is the starting of the fried liver, the trickiest chess opening. The knight and the bishop are both attacking this pawn, which is just protected by the king. If the move h6 is played, that's very bad. Knight takes, the queen and the rook are both under attack. White is already winning. Of course, xQc, as an experienced player, knows it, and yesterday played the move d5. Now, the bishop is under attack. The pawn is blocking the bishop, so knight takes is not a good move. White is taking, and here the mistake. xQc took with the knight, but this is a mistake because it allows the brilliant move knight take f7. You might say, what is happening? This knight is hanging. But after the king takes, there is queen f3 check. Now, if the king hides here, surprisingly, there is bishop takes, and after bim boom bam, that's checkmate. But xQc knows it and went with the king here. The problem is that this position is already quite bad for black. It's true that black has an extra piece, but after knight here, this knight is pinned, so cannot be moved because the king is attacked by the bishop. And this knight is also attacked like 1, 2, 3 times, protected just 1 and 2. So it's not too good. The best move in this position is to play knight b4, which is trying to protect. But here white has still so many moves, and you see even with a piece down, there is advantage for white, which means the advantage is huge, and this king is about to be checkmated. Anyway, xQc went with the knight here because he had a genius idea, attacking the queen and attacking this pawn at the same time. And if he takes this pawn, this is a good fork. The king and the rook are both under attack. But there is a problem that this knight can be captured with check. And now we are at move 9. He went with the king here, and this is made checkmate in 2 moves. Queen f7, king goes here, and now checkmate with the knight. How to avoid this? Let's go back at this point. Everything is good up to here, and now you have to know this. To crush the fried liver, you go with the knight on a5. This because you want to get rid of this bishop that is allowing the tactic with the knight sacrifice on f7. Now, if this bishop moves any square here, you're very happy because you will just take this pawn, equal material, this knight is under attack, the tactic here doesn't work anymore, all good. If the bishop stays on this diagonal, now if you take, there is the same tactic. So what do you have to do? First knight takes, pawn takes, and then you take with the knight. But the best move in this position is to go with the bishop here, giving a check. And now very simple. You cover with your bishop. Usually there is a trade. You take back with the queen. And now this pawn cannot be protected. If the move c4 is played to try to protect the pawn, you take it with the knight. If opponent protects it with the knight, well, you can just take it back. Bing, boom, bang. Now it's equal material. Only thing that you have to do is to castle and develop all your pieces. So white will also castle, not to lose this pawn. And you can castle long, then you can attack this knight, bring this knight back, bring the bishop out. And in this position, there is one plan that you must know. We have opposite side castling, meaning that each side is castle on opposite side of the board. So the best plan is to start a pawn storm, so push all those pawns without losing them. Well, you could also lose them. Push these pawns, open up files, try to trade those pawns for one of the pawns of the king side. Bring the rooks to the open file, bring the queen, and give checkmate. That's the plan. Easy club. That's all you need to know for the fried liver. Leave a like if you're enjoying this video so far. Let's go to the Spanish. The main idea of this opening is that the knight is attacking the pawn that is protected by the knight that is attacked by the bishop. And this game went on with knight f6, and then xQc went exactly with this idea. Took the knight, and then took the pawn. But this is a mistake, because here there is the strong move, queen d4. This pawn and this knight are both under attack, and that's not too good for white. Look at the evaluation bar. Black is already ahead. So in this position, we can just go here and take the pawn just when this pawn is also protected. So we have to wait. Here black can go with two moves. Knight out and bishop out. If bishop out, you have a very fun idea. You can sacrifice your knight, you leave it hanging, but then you have the fork at the center of the board. If the bishop takes, you go out with the queen, you're also attacking the knight. Now, if your opponent says, oh my god, my knight is hanging, let's move it back, then you take on g7 and you're attacking the rook. Here you're nearly winning, look at this. Attention, just in case. If your black plays queen f6, there is a checkmate threat, and there is a knight hanging. So the only move that saves white is to go back here, and then white is fine. In this position, the main move, I think most of the players, and also Panos Dimi here, played the move knight f6. My suggestion here is not to take here and to take the pawn. We have seen that that's not good, but to go with the move castle. Now black has two options. Option number one, you take this pawn that looks free. Option number two, you don't take the pawn and you develop a piece. If bishop out, you have the same idea as before. You can take here, and after this, there is the fork. If black is pushing this pawn to protect this pawn, now you keep going with the idea of the Spanish. Look at these moves. Rook here, you protect this pawn, and then you will keep going with moves like c3, d4. Let's see some ideas. Bishop out, c3. Now, in this situation, and in any situation, if your opponent tries to attack the bishop, you don't trade for the knight. This bishop is so strong. So you simply go back. If your opponent attacks it again, you go back. If your opponent still attacks it with the knight, you really go back. You want to keep that knight. Okay, this can happen at the third move, can happen in any moment. Your opponent can just attack that bishop, and you keep it. Now, let's keep going with some example, just to understand how you develop all your pieces. So castle, you play the move d4, going for the center. Usually they always trade here, and you can take back. If they don't trade, how do you develop this knight? Well, this knight has a very fun maneuver. Knight d2, knight f1, and knight g3. That's what you do. If they take, you take back with the pawn, and now this knight doesn't have to go here to be fancy, but you can go in a very natural square that is knight on c3. So bishop out, knight out. And here I want to show you how you can win the game in a few moves. Rook here, queen d3, and queen and bishop are already, shaking their hands. And now after some normal moves, c5 attacking the center, you can go out with the bishop. If h6, you take the knight, and after bishop takes, you have already a winning move, e5. You're threatening check here, which is nearly checkmate. If this bishop goes back, that's really going to be mate. So here, most probably, black is losing the bishop. What if in this position, black is taking the pawn? Now you have an amazing move, which is the move d4. You're offering a second pawn. You're a pawn down, offering another one. But there is an amazing idea. Here, black can play 3 moves, 4 moves maybe, if your opponent is a carer. So we'll start with knight takes. What if the knight takes? You're taking back, pawn takes, and now we see the idea of the move d4. You want that the knight and the king are on the same file. Now this knight is pinned, cannot go back, and is also under attack. Cannot be protected by this pawn because also pinned. So f5, you play the move f3, and you're winning the knight. If black doesn't take and plays the move d6, here you have a strong move. Look, this knight is pinned, and you go d5. Now this knight seems lost, but there is still the move a6. If you take, black is taking, so you go back. Actually not. If you go back here, it's a bad move, because there is now b5. If you take, black is taking, and after this, well, the knight can just move away, and black is doing all right. So in this position, you have a very strong move. Bishop d3. Now, both knights are under attack. If black is moving this one, you take this one. So you are basically winning with white. In this position, if your opponent is Hikaru, so a grandmaster, they will play the move knight d6, attacking this bishop. Now, don't blunder that bishop. And this is one of the few cases where you're giving your bishop away for the knight. Pawn takes, and now you take back the pawn. Material is equal. The knight has to move, and now you trade the queens because you make your opponent lose the possibility to castle. And in this position, you're just going to develop and be happy. In this position, the move that I expect most players to play is to take with the pawn. And now there is the same idea as if the knight would take first. Rook e1. But there is a problem, because now this knight can be protected, and we don't have immediately the move f3 that we had before. So let's start with the move queen e7. This is a possible way to protect the knight, but honestly, it's quite bad, because the queen is also in the same file as the knight, the king, and here white can just take here, knight takes, queen takes, and after the move f5, develop the knight, and honestly, you are going to take here next, and then to take with the rook. For example, c6 attacking the bishop, you don't care. You just take here, pawn takes, rook takes, and you're going to win the queen. What if black protects with the f pawn? Well, the idea is the same. Now you cannot play f3, so you first take here. After knight takes, queen takes, there is a move that looks spicy, which is bishop c5, because this pawn is under attack. But attention, this is a mistake, because this knight is pinned. Sorry, this knight is pinned, so you can simply take. The queen is not hanging. This knight cannot capture back, so you won a piece. If after queen takes, opponent is just playing a move like c6, you can simply go back after the move d5. I mean, bishop here is again not possible, you just take. After the move d5, you finally play f3. Now it seems like, oh my god, this move is very strong because he's spinning the queen and the king, but this is still f3 piece. The best move in this position to defend the knight is to play the move d5. But still here you go with the same idea, you take with the knight. And now what are you threatening? To take here, pawn takes and bishop takes, and this is a check and the rook is also hanging. Here there are two moves. Bishop c5 is quite spicy, because if you take here with the knight, well, there is bishop takes. And also the rook is under attack, so things are getting really complicated. I suggest you to go for some simple move. So you take with the bishop, giving a check. The pawn has to take, and now this knight is blocking the bishop. So you can simply play the move f3. But now attention, you don't win a piece easily. Well, if your opponent castle, you just take and you won a piece. But there is a spicy move, a tricky move that black can play, queen h4. Now, if you take, you're basically lost. Look at the bar. Brrr. Bishop takes, queen takes, and that's checkmate. Here, you have to play first the move g3, attacking the queen. The knight cannot take because it's pinned. The queen goes back, and then you're happy to take this knight. After trade, you have an extra piece and you'll win the game. Last move that we have to see in this position, if your opponent goes with bishop d6. This is honestly high level, but I tell you. So, you take here with the knight. If pawn takes, you take back. You're attacking the king, the rook, you're winning. But here there is an insane move. Bishop takes. With the idea that if you take here, there is a check, this, that, this, and this is going to be a draw by repetition. But here, instead of taking, you can just go with the king here. The best move now, the queen is under attack, so this queen has to go to the attack. And now there is a brilliant move. You take here, you sacrifice the rook. After pawn takes, you go with the queen here. And you're trading the queens in this super crazy way. And eventually you take here. At the end, in this position, black is having a rook and two pawns in exchange of a bishop and the knight. And this king is quite vulnerable. Here you have to develop very quickly the pieces with white, and white is a bit better. If this is too complex for you, I'll show something very simple. So you can play here, instead of playing castle, you can play d3. After d6, you'll castle, bishop out, and now you'll play this plan. c3 and d4. But attention, you can play c3 immediately, castle. But now, before playing the move d4, you have to develop all your pieces. How you do it? You play h3 because you want to avoid this bishop to go here. Let's say rook here, a6, you go back, you keep always your bishop, you go with your bishop here, bishop out, and now remember the knight maneuver. Knight here with the idea to go on g3. And once you brought this knight to g3, you can then eventually play the move d4, and you'll have a very nice position with the white pieces. It's time for an important disclaimer. Learning openings can be fun and gives you that adrenaline rush. Oh, maybe I'll win the next game very quickly. But learning openings doesn't really make you better at chess. That's why I've made a video with the best rule, the best secret to improve your chess. Watch it out, but before going, remember to like, subscribe, and see you next time.